it up. Now they'll go downwind and the speed will double. So round the mark comes Spain. They're just sending it down towards the bottom mark. And we see that aggressive 4.5 trim to change the elevator attack angle on the foil. Over the line, it is Spain win. They start a beautiful race.
Sailing the Nacra 17 foiling catamaran is all about keeping it on that knife edge of control. Not for one moment can you afford to lose concentration or you'll nosedive or maybe even pitch bowl. Hi, my name's Andy Rice, sailing journalist from the UK, and with me to discuss the importance of clear, concise communication on a Nacra 17 are Tara, Pacheco and Florian Trittel from Spain. Good morning, guys, and thank you very much for joining us on the call today.
Good morning, Andy.
Hi.
So nice to see you both. So tell us where you are in Spain.
In Palma?
Yeah, since we got all sent home from the Trofeo Princesa Sofia Regatta, we stayed here. So we locked down in Palma, and that's where we still are. We've been here for 5 weeks now.
So you two, being locked down together, have the opportunity to work on those communication skills that I was just talking about. Now, I just want to ask you, firstly, I'm going to share screen. Just tell us, Tara, about the importance of communication and clarity of communication. So Tara, just tell us about the importance of being really direct when you're communicating with Florian.
Well, I'm not so good in communication as you can see over there. But yeah, I think it's really important in these fast boats to be really clear on what you want to try to say and what is there.
We'll take a look at this example and just see. This is a really dangerous boat if you get it wrong, right? I mean, I always worry about the safety of you guys, so you need to be focused fully on the job. So let's just get an insight into what it's like sailing a Nacra 17 together.
Más casa, Flo. Me pones en pelotas ahí, Ahí vete para adelante y métemela bastante, ¿vale?
Yeah, so actually this was training ahead of the Sofia Regatta here in Palma already. And even if Tara said that she's not too good in communicating, I think we sort of come along really well, and I can understand whatever she means with whatever way she tries to express herself. So that's also one of the keys, not only knowing how to communicate, but also if you're the other person, understanding what the other person wants to tell you, because as you said as well, it's a crucial boat, or the boat is very difficult at points where, any millisecond is crucial. And
So when Tara said you got me caught with my pants down there, what did you take from that, Flo?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take it like that, because afterwards you realize that she said, "Oh, that sounded a little weird." But what I took out from that sentence there is that she wants ideally to have a little more kite control in that moment, more sheeting tension. But yeah, it was a jibe set that we did there, and the halyard tension wasn't at its max. So yeah, really sheeting in was a little complicated to trim the kite perfectly to its point. So yeah, there was sort of that issue there.
Okay, and then go forward and stick it in deeper. What did that mean?
I mean, you can understand it perfectly, but she was referring to the bows, as you can see, and yeah, we flew out. So basically, is to avoid the fly out is obviously advance that moment and go a little bit further forwards.
So when you get to Enoshima, because congratulations, you are qualified to go to Tokyo 2021 representing Spain.
Thank you.
Big waves out there. You're going to need to get up on that bow and stick it in deeper on a regular basis, aren't you, in Enoshima?
I think we will, but not too deep neither, because if you stick it in too deep, then you might pitch forward, as you said before as well. So yeah, it's finding the healthy balance,
Yes, yes, I guess so. So anyway, it's a really interesting insight there. Let me just see if I can bring up another of your. This is from Instagram, by the way, guys.
Reduce un poco de sota.
¿Qué?
Reduce de sota al 2 y un poco.
Que reduce, que quite.
Sí,
Eso
reduce,
mismo,
joder.
reduce.
Reduce un poco de sota.
¿Qué?
Reduce de sota al 2 y un poco.
Que reduce, que quite. Eso
Sí,
mismo,
reduce, joder.
So there's a little bit of ambiguity there, a little bit of a misunderstanding. So just tell us there, what are you misunderstanding between each other?
Well, what happened here is that for the first time he used the word reduce, that means reduce, but he normally says quita. That also means the same.
It's like take off, but instead of take off or take out some reg, reduce.
Yeah, and I didn't expect reduce, so I thought, oh, maybe he means another thing. So it distracted me completely from what was obvious, that was the rake of the main foil. But as he used another wall, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what he means with this. And I said, what? And then I sound really stupid over there.
What always impresses me about the Spanish is that you seem to be able to have two simultaneous conversations at each other. I don't think there's any other nation on the planet that is able to maintain two conversations while both people are talking simultaneously. How well does that work on an Nacra 17?
I mean, at points it's important if we both want to express our thoughts in that moment, and we also have to receive the message of the other one, so it could be something positive, yeah, no doubt. And this was actually in the lead up to the Worlds in New Zealand, in Auckland. So the tracker and the regatta that we're going to analyze is going to be about, yeah, New Zealand. And this is there, and it was, I can remember this day was really nice and pretty flat in the Rangitoto channel. And yeah, I mean, we had to reduce a little bit the reg because otherwise in the jibes it would go flying to the moon.
Right, yes. Well, that's something you don't want to be doing on a Nacra 17, is flying to the moon. Now, you finished 5th overall in these World Championships at the end of 2019 in Auckland. Now, very generously, you have picked a race where you didn't actually win, because you did win 3 races in Auckland. You won 1 of the qualifying races. You won 2 of the races in the finals, and actually you won the opening race in the finals. But the race that we're going to watch is race 2. So you've just come off the back of a race win earlier in the day. Now, based on the fact that you just won that race, just tell us what your strategy was going into this particular race.
Yeah, so maybe I can cover the big picture a little bit better. We certainly had to qualify the country in that Worlds, and that meant, first of all, managing to be top 5-6 countries, and that was, yeah, mainly that was qualifying in the gold fleet, which we had achieved by that day. But then there was also a little thing that, even if it wasn't our main trial event, it was still important for us, since both Spanish Nacra teams were there, and we sort of wanted to demonstrate how much potential the team has and how much we have improved in the last 1 year, because it had only been 1 year since we teamed up in New Zealand. And yeah, so basically that all came down to that regatta. And then on the first day of Gold Fleet, managing to win the first race, that was obviously something very decent. And after that, well, we knew that it was a really long event and only 1 discard, so consistency was going to pay off a lot. So yeah, as you can also, as we will see now on the start, we sort of approached that second race, maybe not on the very aggressive side from the beginning onwards, but trying to be a bit more consistent and safe on the start, and then from there taking it on and doing our race as we know.
So here we are, 20 seconds out from the start of this race, and there's a Spanish boat extremely close to the line. That's Ika Martinez and Olga Matzlevets. So Flo, what do you think the other Spanish were thinking at this stage?
Yeah, I guess they were really trying to protect that lower gap they had towards the pin end. And you can see them steer around really hard so that they don't advance that much, because they were obviously aware that they were really close to the line. But at the end of the day, as it came out, they didn't succeed, and they were over early in that race, which was a pity. But yeah, it's still part of the game. And sometimes you got people behind you pushing you hard, and you sort of have only that option to trying to risk it a little bit more, but not get caught and hooked by a boat entering lure in the last seconds.
Yeah, so very high risk option taken by ESP 70, and they think they got away with it, but later found out they were disqualified. So we just see you in the right of picture, just behind the Swedish boat on the right hand side. So were you happy with your start in this race?
Yeah, we analyzed it a little bit, and now from seeing it again, we were approaching that start a little bit more conservatively, and I can also recall that I was not really seeing the transit really well, since the Spanish boat was so close to the line. So we were sort of, okay, let's keep it rather on the safe side than on the risky side, because being in a long championship with only one discard, it would be really, really penalizing to have a UFD in that race.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, what we were approaching on before the start, strategically wise, was that we were seeing more pressure on the right side, but we were also aware of the fact that there was more current on the right ley line in the channel, in the Rangitoto channel. The first race had paid off on the left, but since the breeze was slightly picking up, that right side could eventually pay off even with the current against you. So it was actually not easy, but yeah, we sort of tried to sail a clear lane after that start, where I think we got rolled, and we decided to play a little bit through the middle and then finishing off a little bit further right, if I don't recall it wrong. But yeah, so it was a fairly long upwind leg, so maybe we can just speed it up a little bit and go forwards. But we mainly saw very few boats heading out towards the left side of the course, and the big leaders of that race, which were the French and Ben Saxton and Nicky, they were coming from an early right.
And Ben Saxton, I saw, was a boat that started on port tack just beneath the Spanish at the pin end. So that obviously worked out extremely well for the British to find themselves up in the top flight. But here you are. What do you see going on here for your boat? Yeah,
exactly. I think here we're already discussing or evaluating whether we want to go towards where the French is. We can see him with more speed than the others. He's almost, running at 11 knots. So he was definitely in some pressure, and we were sort of trying to keep it safe and staying with the fleet, So since we didn't see anything clear, but we were a little bit more inclined towards the right side, that was probably something we were thinking on that starboard we were sailing on before.
And at the moment,
and now something really interesting, I think, as well, as we can see Jason sort of in 6th, 7th, or at least out of the top 5. And he's heading towards the right, and we will see how he ends up rounding the top mark. So just to have an idea of how the right side ended up paying.
So yeah, at the moment you've got big separation between Besson on the far right hand side in the lead, and then Saxton, who's just out of picture, far out on the left hand side. Now, what kind of breeze would you say that you were sailing in here? What kind of wind strength?
I think it was around 12, 13 knots.
Okay.
So still in the edge of start to depowering a lot the sails. But also, as you could see, and you can see there is a lot of choppy waves. So somehow you need to have a balance in the trimming of the boat. And playing with the modes over there was really tricky too.
Florian, you look like you're very mobile on the side of the boat. The image that we just saw there, you're really putting a lot of work into your body movement there. What are you trying to achieve there?
Yeah, I think, as Tara said, and as you're saying as well now, it's crucial that you you don't want to have the bow sticking in too deep, like in our trainings, and you don't want to have it flying too high neither, because then you lose sideways and have a lot of leeway. And so basically I'm trying to control the pitch all the time and adjust it as well as I can. And yeah, as we can see, we're sort of further left than the most or the biggest part of the fleet. But to my impression, we approached this last upwind part fairly well. And on these images, you can also see the current, the strength of the current. It is wavy, but also you can see the water displays really fast compared to the hull. So yeah, it was really important to get your lanes. Certainly you can see Saxton and Nicky a little bit lower, and still sort of, even if they're not very inclined to the right, they were there in the mix on the top. So
And
yeah, it was about finding a lane.
Well, they're certainly finding their own lane out on the left-hand side. They're not too bothered about sticking with the fleet right now, the British. It seems like they're very putting their money on the left-hand side.
Yeah, probably they were sailing lifted, and they were trying to make use of that lift and waiting for that header to come and then tack. But look at Jason and Lisa now. They were sort of out of the top 5, and they were now on the screen shown as second. And they were like really inclining towards the right side. So it was clearly a sign of the wind, or at least that race course shifting more towards the right sided favorite course compared to the first race, where we saw that the left side was a little stronger at the beginning.
Right. So as you said about Waterhouse and Darman and the Australians, they did pretty well by getting over to that right-hand side. Finally, we see the British Saxton and Boniface tacking over onto port tack, and now they're going to have to see how they do as they come back into the fleet. Let's just go a little bit further forwards. So New Zealand 4, we haven't spoken about them yet. Which team is New Zealand 4?
Yeah, that's Gemma and Josh. They were also, I think in this race, they were up there in the mix, and even these guys, they were also in a race against they had their trials against Micah, and yeah, they were sort of both up there in that race in the mix, and sort of coming in from the right side here, we can see that I don't remember where they started, but they were actually doing fairly well.
We also saw Paul Koloff and Alice Stulema from Germany up there doing very well at the top of the fleet. Tara, you did the last campaign crewing at the front of the boat in the Nacra, and now you're steering at the back. What's your view about which is the best way round to have the crew weight and the strength in the Nacra?
Well, I think it really depends, no? Obviously, being a crew, it takes a lot of energy, and you need to be extremely fit, and mostly because at the end there are some guys crewing like a flow in the boat, and you need to be at that level. But to be honest, I also think that as most of the crews are girls, and I think that they are making a really, really nice job. And obviously, at the end is a balance in between both inside the boat, and be able to do whatever the other is not able to do, and try to make it work.
Meanwhile, we got the French. They've held the lead for most of the first leg, and they go around in first place. And that's quite a healthy lead they've got over the rest of the fleet right now.
Exactly, and we can see Jason and Lisa coming in second after that decision of inclining towards the right side. So, and I think Germans are next. But yeah, certainly, and he's actually jibe setting now with the current in his favor. So yeah, it was pretty clear indicator that the right side was good as well, that the Brits, Ben and Nicky, at the last bit of that upwind lost a few places trying to sail further left. So that was something that also was important enough for the decisions to be made on the downwind, that information. And you can see most of the teams either jibe setting or early jibing, trying to stay in that pressure that we were having on that right side of the course. So that's us rounding. I think we don't jibe set, but we early jibe in this one. And
that's Saxton and Boniface there we were looking at. And funnily enough, we just saw the other Spanish, Martinez, Matzlevet. So you're quite well ahead of them now. So for all the fact that they got a really good start and later disqualified, it didn't work out for them that well on this leg.
Yeah, I don't know. Something happened there. I didn't really pay attention to what they did. But yeah, they started off really well and then also sort of sailed towards the right side. But I think they rounded in 13th or something like that.
And then we just see an example there of just how expensive a nosedive can be and how much distance you can lose. So really difficult to keep the boat on the foils, isn't it?
It's a fine balance there because you really want to be foiling with the boat to be able to go faster and hoist faster. But on the other side, it's choppy and it's not easy to fly the boat through all the waves. And it's really easy to find all of a sudden a hole which you can't anticipate, and then you sort of fly out and make a full stop. So you have to decide.
It looks like it could be very painful. Now up at the front, we see Besson and Ryu, 4-time winners of the Nacra World Championship before it went on to full foils. So they were the dominant team going into Rio 2016, although they didn't do that well at Rio 2016. But still going very well in this race right now. Let's just do a little bit of a fast forward and take it towards the bottom of the course.
Yeah, what we basically can see is that the whole fleet inclines toward the right side of the leg or of the excuse me, of the course, since there was more pressure, and that's also something I will see on the second up and down.
Besson and Rio managing to hold on to that lead. Waterhouse and Darmanin still in second place. And yet, do you think the right-hand side at this stage, because the right-hand side paid so well, that is the obvious side to want to go up the next upwind leg?
Well, it could be a good option. So I guess they're going to take it on consideration right now. What can happen here is, well, now they take the left mark, but in this boat sometimes it's worth it to just continue straight and take the mark that you go naturally instead of jibing, and later on make a quick tag. So that could be also an option for the rest of the fleet, instead of just going to the left mark and being behind traffic.
Oh, a good overtaking maneuver here by the Danish, Lynn Senholt and CP Lubeck, who ended up second in this World Championship and finished on equal points with the winners, the Italians, Bissaro and Frascari. So, yeah, nice move there by the Danes.
Yeah, they decided to round it wide at the beginning and then really come close to the mark at the end, which is how you want to do it. So you have that extra little bit of windward on that upwind leg. And yeah, you can see we rounded the right mark looking downwind and then did an early tack so we could head up to the right side.
So that's given you a nice clear lane going out to the right-hand side. So quite a lot of turning to be done at the bottom mark, but once you're tacked onto port tack, that gives you a long clear lane out in that direction, I guess.
Exactly, and that was, we knew it was going to be a long lane, so rather be free than not trying to always sail out of the bad air of someone in front of you.
And you can see that pretty much everyone has learnt the lesson of the first beat. It seems like there's more wind on the right-hand side. As you look further up the course, it looks like the wind is stronger, and it feels like it's turning into a bit of a one-way track. Is that how it feels with you at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, you know that it's going to be a long way now to a ride, and having a clear lane is going to be super important to be able to generate speed during that tack. And I guess that's why we made that decision to turn or to take the right mark and then tag SAP.
Now, I fast forwarded through a lot of the downwind, but I'm wondering how it is that Saxton and Boniface have managed to get back up to 4th place. So they must have had a really good downwind leg.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not really sure what they did, but certainly they are or have been one of the teams that have proven to be one of the fastest in sort of all kind of conditions. And their recoveries, such as the one that we can see in this race, made them be up there on the overall racing scores, because being consistent, and also Jason and Lisa, I know these two teams, they are really known for consistency, and that's something that pays off long term.
Meanwhile, an old America's Cup boat in the background, state of the art from 20 years ago, and you can see how much sailing has changed in the last 20 years, because it looks like a museum piece now. And
absolutely. I knew you were going to comment on it. That's why I stopped speaking.
Yeah, well, it's a nice bit of backdrop for the racing, but a bit of a slow old beast compared to these Nacra 17s. So anyway, you're up into 6th place. So we'll just have a look at you on the right hand, 7th place, but you're definitely up there in the mix right now. What do you see from watching other people's sailing styles when you watch these videos? Is there anything for you to learn from watching these videos in terms of technique?
Well, I mean, yeah, there are some things that obviously they're important to see. For example, here it's you can see how much the boat is moving in the pitching, so you can start thinking how important is for that team how the boat is moving, and then also the position in the boat. You cannot see really well here the sails, but you focus on how the boat is moving and the position of the crew. You try to figure out how they sail.
Yes, okay. Let's just move it a little bit further up. Besson and Ryu still in the lead. Waterhouse and Darmanin not too far behind. That is Besson and Ryu, our race leaders.
The channel mark.
And yeah, so you don't want to be hitting one of those, do you? But
not really. But that was clearly indicating you that you were sailing close to the channel, or even in the channel, which is where the current was pretty strong. And yeah, but even though right side in this race was paying off, and yeah, you can see Billy and Marie sort of starting to skim with their boat, trying to go more for a faster foiling mode. But yeah, I think they're still pretty far away and they don't want to risk it.
Were they using that to try and sail over the top of the Australians, do you think? Let's just have a look at this. I mean, the boat looks really fast there, doesn't it? It looks like they're just sailing a little bit lower and really pushing for full foiling there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's, it's important, huh? So you can ensure your position here. It's not going to be any more tacking. So if you clearly get ahead of the other boat and control that position, then you'll be at least in front of the mark, and then see how the downwind goes. But you can see us.
Sorry, go on. Yeah, so you're in 5th, top right of picture at the moment.
Exactly. So we sort of came up a little bit from being 9th or 10th on the first upwind, and sort of trying to make smart decisions, even if we knew that it was pretty inclined to one side. And one of those certainly has been the rounding of the leeward gate and then having clear lane.
So even though that was a slow maneuver at the time and cost you distance as you made that maneuver, it worked out in the long run. So it was a good long-term investment for you.
Exactly.
So that bit of foiling that we saw the French do, it got them over the top of Waterhouse and Darmanin, and now the French have re-established their lead quite significantly. So that was a good move by the French. But it's interesting that the French, they were the dominant nation of the previous Olympic cycle, Tara, and you were involved with that cycle, sailing with Fernando Echevarri. But the French have not been such a force in this Olympic cycle leading up to Tokyo, have they?
Well, I mean, they were still a good team. Obviously, they were not as strong as they were in the last campaign. I guess that could be also that they were not since the beginning. Manny was doing all the stuff, Billy too. But either way, we as a team, we consider them as a potential team that could improve really, really quick. And therefore, we have it on our minds.
Yes. So it's still world class, but just not as dominant as they were, winning 4 world championships in a row. But still in this race, obviously proving that they're as good as anybody else on their day.
Yeah, exactly. And we also have the other French team, which Quentin and Manon, they have qualified for the games, and they did really well in Oshima, the test event. So I think they're also a pretty new team, and they are coming in really hot. So we'll see good action from them as well. Yes,
and as you say, done well on the Olympic venue waters, which are so special and going to demand excellent boat handling. And here you come, going round.
Yeah, I think Florian. That's already 6th. We overtook the Austrians, the Danish, the Brazilians. That was all on the first downwind and the second upwind. So and now it was sort of more trying to maintain our position, because the ones ahead, they were, I think, a bit too far ahead of us in order to really try to risk it. And because if you want to pass the boat in these conditions on a downwind, you have to go like risking it in a 110%, and then the risk of flying out and losing a lot is also fairly high. So yeah, you have to find a balance there and judge really well how much is possible and how much is not possible.
And you were just saying about how the leaders have got away. Here are the leaders. They're involved in their own match race because there's nobody else in contention for the win. So all the French here have to do is to protect on Darmanin and Waterhouse on the left-hand side. Australia too still attacking the French, but it's the French who still just about hold the advantage. And it's a long way back to anybody else. And it's interesting how the leaders sometimes just keep on stretching further and further away. Why do you think we see that so often in sailboat racing, Tara?
Well, I think, in my opinion, that is because you have clear lanes, and sometimes it really pays off to be able to have good average on speed. And to be honest, the only way you can do that is being on top 3, not even top 5. It's sometimes good to do that, but that should be a priority when you are sailing in these boats, to have a clear lane to be able to make the most of your speed.
And I'm just going to go back to this. Just look at the amount of movement fore and aft by the Australians. So the French still looking to get across the front of the Australians on starboard, which they just about get away with. But I just want to look at that movement by Lisa Darmanin going so far forwards up on the bow. Florian, you're one of the biggest crews. How hard is it to work that kite sheet and also to stay mobile on the side of the boat?
Yeah, I think it's a crucial job, and from my experience, the wavier it gets, the more critical and harder or physical it gets as well. Because if it's really wavy, the boat is not going to foil that much, and you're sort of always in a skimming mode, and you have to play the kite a lot. The apparent wind is really far back aft, and yeah, the trimming gets sometimes very important because you can really fly out in these big waves, but also it's hard, no? So it's something very important, but it's something very difficult to do, and that's where it gets really physical. On days like these, where you sort of have the apparent wind a bit further forward still, the moving is the main part. The small kite adjustments help out a lot, but the moving, yeah, is the main part, and it's important, but I would say it's a little bit easier than in the really wavy stuff, which we will see at the Olympic Games in Hiroshima. Here we can see a typical jibe, which sort of is a fly out, but as we can As we can see now, the finish line, the Aussies finished first, so that means they did a better job on that downwind, and overall maybe going for that early jibe made them gain a few meters and come closer so they could win the race.
Yes, they look like they're more dynamic on the side of the boat downwind as well. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but they look more practiced in this full foiling mode than the French did.
Well, I mean, I have to say that Lisa, in my opinion, is one of the best crews that the fleet has. She has a lot of experience in catamaran boats and obviously in this boat right now. And yes, you said, she's working really hard to keep the balance on the boat, keep it flying as much as possible, and be able to be faster than, in this case, Billy and Marie.
Yes. I mean, they were so close to winning the gold medal, the Australians, in Rio 2016, and they'll certainly be one of the favourites for Tokyo 2021. Now, just talk us across the finish line here. It's a close finish here.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that one. That leads up to the moment that we were still sailing on port after our first jibe in the middle of that downwind. We were struggling a lot. We had some waves on our bow from some boats, and we were nosediving quite a lot. So we were not in a fast mode, and the Danish, they were behind us, but they recovered. They really came closer. And then at some point, when we decided to jibe, they also jibed, and we sort of were both we were on the pennant ley line, they were on the committee ley line, and they managed to sneak their bow forwards a little bit. And they're also known, I mean, Lynn and CP, they're one of the crews that are controlling and dominating the boat best of the whole fleet, and especially on downwinds. I think CP is one of the references of the class in how to handle a Nacra 17 on downwinds.
And similar setup to you in terms of female helm, male crew. So does that mean that they share sort of characteristics in the way that you sail the boat as well?
Yeah, I'd say so. And if I'm not wrong, in the medal race, we were 2 teams. That we had only male crews, the rest were female crews.
Right, okay.
So, I mean, it's a big difference, but I mean, Lynn and CP, they got silver. So, and the rest, obviously, Vito and Mael, they got gold. So it's not really clear what is better. As Tara said before, it's probably both combinations are really good. You just have to find a good partner and work it on from there.
What makes you two a good partnership?
Not the communication, for sure. But we will improve.
I think if you look at it as a puzzle in our team, we're many pieces of a puzzle with our coaches, our federation, and we sort of complement ourselves really well, no? Where Tara is really strong, I might need some help, and where I'm really strong, I can help Tara. So it's the different areas that we are different. We have different strengths, and that's what has resulted in our strong improvement and qualifying for the games.
Can you just rotate your screen so I can see a little bit more of you as well, Flo? That's great. Now, you come from quite different backgrounds in terms of, Tara, you won the 470 Worlds as a helm before you got into crewing the Nacra. I used to sail the 470 myself. Won't surprise you that I was the crew, or rather than the helm, but that boat never scared me. That wasn't a scary boat, but when I'm watching you and other sailors on Nacras, I feel physical fear just watching you. So what was it like going from a fairly kind boat like the 470, which doesn't really put you in danger, to sailing a boat that can be as dangerous as the Nacra 17?
Well, if I look back, I don't know what I was thinking when I started sailing in Nacra, to be honest. I just, like, I was small, even in weight. I only was 57 kilos, I think, and I needed to gain a lot of weight and muscle. And then at that point, the Nacra was not really, like the Nacra started and then nothing was prepared for that boat. The systems were not ready. We didn't know how to sail the boat. We didn't know actually if girl crew was gonna work good in that position or was the skipper. So yeah, we worked really hard. Comparing to the 470, there was different goals at that moment, and yeah.
Very different style of sailing. Just while I remember, what's the injury on your finger? Is that a Nacra related injury or what is that?
It's a home-related injury.
Are you going to tell us?
Lockdown-related injury. Nothing serious.
It's nothing to do with that wine bottle behind you, I hope.
No.
Not
it's
yet,
my
it's
clumsiness.
Now, Florian, I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were on the verge of giving up on your Olympic dreams a year or so back. So where were you at that point with your campaign? What were you thinking? And then what happened?
Yeah, so I was in 2012 when I stopped sailing the 29ers, and the logical step would have been to step it up to the 49er and campaign in the 49er. But I always knew that it was also important to study, and we had 3 teams in the 49er in Spain that were already campaigning towards 2016 in Rio. And if I wanted to start the 49er and combine it with the university degree, that was not going to work out. So I said, okay, the kite foil, well, it was the kite racing back then still, is going to be Olympic. That's what they said, no? It's going to replace the windsurfing. And I said, well, maybe with my sailing background, I can have this little edge, and then when others have to sort of acquire that background, I can be studying, and then I can combine a university degree with an Olympic campaign. I started studying online. I moved to Tarifa and started kite surfing, and then the whole kite surfing scene developed into a kite foiling scene, which is now the new Olympic class for Paris 2024. But myself, after finishing my university degree and seeing that it was not established as an Olympic class for Tokyo 2020. In 2018, I said, okay, I'm going to give up on this, for now at least, on this Olympic kite foiling project. I finished my degree and I want to start my own business, which I have. And I was actually sitting in Barcelona in an office, a co-working office, when I got a call, and then I got this inquiry if I wanted to campaign. But it was not a normal campaign. It was like a against the clock campaign, because we only had 1.5 years for the games in Tokyo. It was Iago Lopez Marra who put us in contact from the 49er. And he said, hey, Tara is gonna try to start a campaign after Fernando stops sailing, and maybe you want to be her crew. And I said, it's not really fitting in my plans, but I started sort of thinking about it, and it has always been one of my dreams and one of my goals, and being able to campaign for 1.5 years with a set-up team, with Tara with a lot of experience. And I said, well, it's a really, really good opportunity. And so I decided to try to sail with Tara. She was sort of convinced that I could not be the worst one. So she also wanted me, because we didn't know each other. We had like a short trial for a few days. And then when we decided we wanted to go full on, I stopped being in Barcelona and started full on campaigning towards the first goal, which were the Worlds that we just analyzed one of the races of. Because we had to qualify the country, and then after that we knew that the country trials, our qualification inside the country, were not going to be easy because of the other teams' weight in the federation. And so it was quite an ambitious goal, but we have achieved it. And now looking back at it, it's sort of okay, if you can dream big, if you stay humble and work hard, you can achieve it. So that's sort of our mindset.
So when was the first time you sailed together as a team?
Was at the really end of November. I have to say that I didn't have any experience as helming, so I don't know what he thought when he jumped in the boat, but I don't have the boat under control now, and I didn't at the moment for sure.
We were in Santander, and the first day she was like, "Okay, let's go foiling." And I'm like, "Foiling already now?" yeah. Okay, probably she controls my part as well, so that's why she's so confident that we can go foiling. But now, if we look at it back, none of us was controlling it. But yeah, we were lucky that in the bay of Santander, there's no waves, and it's fairly easy to sail the boat, or easier than with waves.
So we're talking November 2018. Flo, was that the first time that you'd sailed in a Nacra 17?
Yes, correct.
Wow. So in the space of a year, we didn't see it in that race then, but as we said earlier, the race earlier in the day in Auckland, just a year later, well, at this regatta that we've been talking about, you win 3 races after you've only been sailing together for a year. And Flo, you've only even been in the Nacra 17 for a year. And Tara, you've only been steering the boat for a year, and you end up 5th in the World Championships. That must have been so far ahead of your dreams.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of our goals was to finish top 8. It was one of my personal goals and also one of the team goals. But obviously, sometimes when you set your goals, they're sort of a little bit optimistic, no? But I think it's also important to set optimistic goals, because then if you really work hard, they become realistic. And that has happened in our case.
So let me just go through the points. So in the medal race, you finish 2nd in the medal race in Auckland, just a couple of days after the race we've just watched. So you finished on, what was it, 111 points. And so you finish on equal points, but you just beat Ben Saxton and Nicky Boniface, who finish in 6th. So they're on equal points with you. Just 4 points further back, Ruggero Tita and Caterina Banti from Italy, world champions in 2017. And then in 8th place, just 7 points behind you, the Austrians Zajac and Mats. And then in 9th place, the Olympic champions from 2016, Santiago Langa and Cecilia Carranza. So they are only 9 points behind you. So in a double point medal race, there was a lot riding on that. And what would have been the difference if you had have finished outside the top 8 in Auckland?
You mean personally for us, or?
Yeah, well, yes, in terms of you talked about you targeted a top 8. What was that because of Olympic qualification, or just a personal goal that you set yourself?
I think it might have been a combination of everything. As well, in Spain, we get supported from the government financially if we finish in top 8 at the Worlds. So that was also part of the reasons why we set that goal. Because yeah, in order to sustain our lives, we need also some incomes, and even if it's not much, that would obviously help. And the higher up you finish, the more financial support you get.
So now everyone has the same challenge of how do you continue to become a better Olympic sailor when you can't actually go on the water. So under lockdown with the coronavirus as it is in the world right now, what are you doing to make sure that you are continuing to become better sailors each day?
Well, in our case, we're working a lot in communication. As you see.
Why do you laugh, Andy?
I just hope that communication wasn't something to do with the cut on your finger there, Tara.
No, not this time.
No, I think, there's many things that we can improve, but in our case, communication is really important in our goal, and that's what we're doing.
We're also working with the psychologist a lot, trying to prepare the year, and obviously, even if we weren't allowed until yesterday to go out, we prepare physically because we have a nice little terrace, and we can, not little but big, even a swimming pool, so we can do some physical preparation, which, I mean, it's something that we can focus on a lot now, and then when we come back to sailing, we're in fit form.
Okay, so give us an example of the kind of things that you've been doing on the terrace to stay fit.
I mean, in the pool, which is a small pool and you cannot always like turn around and swim, we have attached ourselves to a bungee and then just swam on the spot, and it's working out really fine. And you can do your series, you can just swim there and work on your resistance.
Wow, that takes some commitment though. You don't get the reward of actually moving through the water.
Exactly, and especially because the pool has been pretty cold until 1 week ago. So we've been swimming in our sailing wetsuits.
Right.
Just to be in touch with the boat.
It's so you have to get creative in this scenario. What about visualization and thinking about how you go through maneuvers and how you go through different high pressure scenarios that you might come across in the Olympics? Are you practicing these things in your mind?
Yeah, obviously that's another thing that I think everybody is practicing. And you also see videos. I mean, I'm happy that we're staying here together, so we have a lot of chats, a lot of ideas, sometimes they're bad ideas, sometimes they're good ideas. But yeah, just to keep it fresh, your mind, and to be in contact with the boat, it's really important to go through all that. Just imagine that you are in a boat, maneuver, jiving, starting, and just have a nice chat about that and put ideas on the table.
It's as if we were husband and wife, but without any rights. So. But yeah, I mean, it's many days and a lot of time together, but I think we're dealing with it really well and coming along amazingly good. So everything is pretty positive, and that finger is certainly not my fault.
You're very keen to point that out, because yes, people are starting to get a bit sick of each other in the same household. But you two have managed to stay friends through this enforced lockdown, have you?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to manage to stay friends and really grow together as a team for another year, 5 more weeks right now shouldn't be a problem.
And considering that you've only been sailing together for just 18 months, are you one of the teams that you think will benefit more from a year-long postponement from Tokyo 2020 now to July Tokyo 2021?
I guess for everyone, it is still an opportunity. You have 1 year more to learn. In our case, for sure, it's not a bad thing. So the only way we can see this new opportunity is just 100% positive.
We see such developments and progress in the way that people sail the Nacra 17 from one season to the next season. I'm sure when you look back at the early days of foiling from 2017, that things have changed enormously. So do you think that we will see another big change between the way that people are sailing the boat today to the way they'll be sailing it at the time of the Olympics?
I mean, crews will get better and better at mastering the art of controlling the boat. And as you already spoke about with Nathan in the other chat, the upwind foiling topic is every time more sort of a thing. And probably it's going to be something that crews and teams will be pushing, especially in the flat conditions. And in the trainings, everyone is pushing it. And as Nathan said, in the racing, no one really dares to. But it could be that we could see a little bit of something more coming there in the racing. But I do think that it's not going to happen in the really wavy stuff in Enoshima. Like if we get some offshore conditions, there might be options to play tactically with the foiling mode. If we get the onshore wavy stuff, probably not.
No, just you do need that flat water, and you were hoping to get that, I suppose, at the European Championships in Lake Garda this year, which obviously aren't going to happen now. Guys, you must be so looking forward to getting back on the water. I'm pleased to see that you have managed to get on so well during lockdown and that you've had the opportunity to work on your communication. Thanks for being such good sports today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you better, and I look forward to seeing you again at some point in the real world.
Sure thing. Thanks, Andy. Thank you for the initiative. We see each other soon.
I very much hope so. Cheers, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.